Hey everyone, it's Linnea for LDRS Creative, and we have another HSN intro video. So today we're going to be looking at the Birds and Buds stamps and coordinating dies. This is an upsell kit, so we're also going to be using some of the products from the main kit as well. Now the Birds and Buds stamp set is a 4x6 stamp set, and then there are 2 coordinating dies to go along with this stamp set. So you can cut out every single one of those birds, the flowers, and the greenery. There are 2 stamps in the stamp set. One is just that little leaf piece, and then all of the others, every bird, every flower, is all one stamp. So you can easily stamp all of them together, and then you can color them and die cut all of them together. I love sets like this because it makes it really easy to just line things up and just have a whole bunch of colored images ready to go. Now, like I said, Birds and Buds is an upsell kit. The slider die that I'm going to be using in today's card comes from the Butterflies and Buds slider kit. This is the same idea where it's a stamp set, but it has butterflies instead of birds, but you also get this slider die. Here's an example of what I made with the Butterflies and Buds slider kit. And so I used all those butterflies and I put them on top of this card that has this slider mechanism. So today we're going to be using the Birds and Buds stamps along with this slider die to create a fun slider card. I love the way that this slides up, and you can easily add a hidden message like I did for this card, or you can pop some cash or a gift card under there as well. Let's go ahead and start with the stamping and coloring. Now, like I said, this is one stamp, and it is made of photopolymer, and it's very good quality, but you can still stretch it. So be careful taking a large stamp like this off of the packaging. I did it little by little and just pulled the packaging away little bit at a time till I had that whole stamp released. Then I put that onto some white cardstock in my stamping platform, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp this with Raven Hybrid ink. Stamp with whatever ink matches the type of coloring you're going to be doing. I am going to be coloring with alcohol markers, and so I know that Raven Hybrid ink is great for coloring with that, so that's why I stamped there. I'm going to color my images really simply, and I'm using one of my favorite color combinations. I love this happy pink with a bright yellow. So my birds are all going to be pink with yellow bellies, and then my flowers are going to be a turquoisey teal color. Whenever I color, I start with my darkest marker, and then I go out from there. So for these birds, I did just 2 colors, my darkest and then my lightest. So you can see I have lots of shadows there. And I'll do the same thing with their bellies. I'm starting with my darker yellow and then blending out with my lighter. Same thing with my flowers. I started with my darker, and then I'm going to color out with my lighter marker there and just finish up that kind of blue-green color flower. That really looks nice with those birds. Then same thing for my leaf. I'm going to color with my darker just at the base of those leaves to bring in some dimension and then blend that out. Once all of my coloring is done, I'm going to take that over to my die cutting machine, and I'll grab the Birds and Buds coordinating dies. Just like how you stamped all those images at once, we're going to die cut them at once. The only image that's separate is the greenery piece, that little leaf, and that's so you can stamp lots of leaves to go along with your flowers if you want to, without having to stamp all of those birds and flowers over again. So I'm going to just line up that die with the outline of my images, and I'll use some low-tack tape to hold that in place. Same thing with my leaf. I'll tape that down and run that through my die cutting machine. So once this comes out of my machine, I'm going to have a whole bunch of images all die cut at once. I'll just pop them out of the dies, and then I usually just put these in a little dish while I work on the rest of my card. I'm going to give you a quick close-up peek at some of these birds. They're really cute. And then all of these flowers that you also get cut out all at once. So you have a whole handful of flowers and a trio of birds. Let's work on the base of the card, which is going to include that slider mechanism from the Birds and Buds kit. Now I went ahead and took each of those 3 dies and cut them out once from white cardstock. You can use colored cardstock if you want, but I'm going to alter this white cardstock by adding just a bit of ink blending. So I'm going to grab my LDRS Creative Marina Madness ink. It's one of my go-to favorite ink colors, and a blending brush, and I'm just going to ink around not all of the edges, but kind of the top edges of some of these and around the edges that are really going to be seen. So this little square, that's going to be your pop-up off of the slider. You're going to see this entire square. So I'll ink around all of that. And then that white piece with the tab at the top, I'm going to ink around the top of that tab. And then I will also ink around all four corners of my white card base. So here are all of my pieces. I did do a little bit of ink blending around this scalloped piece as well, but I kept that lighter just for a bit of dimension. Now the only special folding you need to do is an accordion fold on this scalloped rectangle. I started at the top, folded that back, and then just opposite way so that I could create a little tent piece in the middle of that. On this slider piece here, there is an indented, impressed line, and it's going to perfectly line up with the small flap on the back of that front scalloped tent piece, is what I like to call it. We're going to adhere that together. Just that small flap is the only place where you want to add adhesive. It's kind of like a little leg. I'm going to add my adhesive just onto that part and then line that up with those embossed lines on that slider panel, and you can see how that's going to pop right in the background. So this scalloped frame is going to be in front, and you're not really going to see a whole lot of that white panel in the background. Now the only other piece we need to adhere to complete the slider is the pop-up piece, and that's going to go right on the front in the middle of that scalloped rectangle. What I like to do is pop up that tent piece so you can see that that kind of the front of the tent, that's the only place you want to add adhesive. I'll add my adhesive and then add my square so that it is butted up against that bottom score line and centered within that rectangle. And here is the slider mechanism. Really easy, effortless to do, and it's such a fun way to add a bit of interaction to your card. So now I'm going to go back to those birds and flowers that I colored and just play around with the arrangement and adding them onto my card. You do want to make sure that you don't add images that are going to get in the way of the slider mechanism. So I like to add my images, and as I add, I'm going to keep messing with that slider just to make sure that everything is functioning the way it's supposed to. Once I have my images on the front, it's time to adhere the slider to my card. Now remember, you want this to slide, so you don't want to add adhesive to the top, otherwise you can't pull that little slider scallop out. You also don't want to add adhesive to that white panel that we die cut on the back, because that part needs to move freely. So that leaves just those thin lines around the three edges, the two large sides and the bottom, to add your adhesive. I prefer adding foam adhesive because that gives a bit of lift to the slider element so that it freely slides, but you can use liquid adhesive if you want. I love adding a little something behind this slider, like a sentiment or something, so I die cut the word hugs and added that to the inside. And it's hidden now. You can see this card is completely flat, so it's easy to mail. But then when you pull on that slider tab, it pops up, and there's that little hugs sentiment, and it's a reveal. And because there's something there, you can kind of hook that slider onto the top of that sentiment. So if your recipient wants to display this on their mantle, they can. That's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you again really soon. Bye.